Gonzaga's just ended a streak of 175 straight games won in which they led by at least 10 points. It's their first loss of that instance since 2015 to Arizona State. Can you remember a win like this for Kentucky?
Yeah, I'm sure Cal's had one that he's come back from this. But, again, they had so much talent. They could do it a different way on you. This isn't that type of team. And also, let's not forget, they did it against a Gonzaga team that had a ton of retention. And
yes, 81%.
They're old. Right. They're old. They had a lot of dudes back. They're playing it in their quasi, home court, somewhere they play, pretty much every year in Seattle. So they had the home court advantage there. But for Kentucky to go in and again, change things up at halftime, stick with it, fight back, get back in the game. Then, by the way, you miss an open opportunity by Brea to win the game in regulation and still get it in overtime, again, against a veteran club with arguably the best true point guard in the country in Ryan Nembhard. Really, really, really impressive.
Yeah,
it puts them in a different category for me. Now, listen, when you're ranking them right now, they're a team that most of the teams look at in the top 10 this week. A lot of them lost, right? I saw Duke beat Auburn. Kansas obviously lost to Creighton. A bunch of teams lost. I have it right in front of me here. Marquette lost earlier in the week to Iowa State.
Kentucky lost earlier this week.
They did. Right. They lost to Clemson on the road. Purdue lost at Penn State. A lot of teams losing on the road, right? That's why this one will stand out. A win at Gonzaga is – all these teams are playing these neutral site games right now. And, frankly, a lot of the atmospheres are just okay. The one in Vegas was pretty good with Duke and Kansas. Champions Classic's always good. But there's some bad crowds at some of these neutral site games. But
credit these coaches for playing these games, Jeff. Because all we're talking about right now, we have to watch a 4-hour show tomorrow about the college football playoff. That's what we have to do tomorrow. Yeah. That show's 4 hours long. You mean to tell me it's going to take 4 hours to reveal 12 teams? Are you kidding me?
Take
4 hours.
They'll find a way.
But in terms of like creating more buzz around college basketball in November and December, these games matter. People will pay attention to these games. A lot of people were watching this game on the West Coast because the football games were over, right? Like Clemson, Dabo is going back to the playoff. Not a shock to anybody. But nobody's like, you're not tuning into a game in Vegas where there's, a couple thousand people there. But you'll tune into Duke Auburn at Cameron Indoor Stadium.
And I'll tell you, I was there.
So like there's 9 undefeated teams still left, right? There's 9 undefeated teams. And I think if you look at all the 9, and we're gonna get into Archie Miller here in a little bit because what a turnaround he's doing at Rhode Island to get them back going in the right direction. But some of these teams that are undefeated, my alma mater, it's like, have they really played anybody? You're undefeated, but have you played? Are you going on the road to Duke, to Cameron Indoor Stadium to play a game to create more buzz around college basketball in November and December? Like, that's what we need. And I get it. Like, as a former coach, like, look, you want to try to schedule to win 25 games. I get it. But, like, if you are confident about your bunch, like John Shire's confident about his team, he'll play anybody. Mark Few's confident about his team. He'll play anybody. Mark Pope's confident about his team. They'll play. Like, that's great for our game. That's great for our game. The neutral site games, look, I called 2 of them. There were some great environments. It was awesome. But, like, the home and homes to create more buzz in November and December is what college basketball needs with these powerhouses.
Jeff, I'm going to take the stage for a moment and say this. Tomorrow, meaning today, because we're on 12:47 a.m. Eastern time, marks the 5-week mark of the college basketball season. We're through the first 5 weeks of the season. Through 5 weeks, the Kentucky Wildcats are 8-1. They own wins over the Duke Blue Devils, who have as compelling a player as any in college basketball and the most compelling prospect in the country. and they own a win over the Gonzaga Bulldogs, who returned 81% of their scoring. And when it comes down to retention, among the biggest heavy hitters in the nation, they are at the top of that list. And Kentucky has wins over both of them. So if you said Duke was inexperienced in that game, Kentucky, they took advantage at the time of year, that argument now gets squashed. Lamont Butler, out. Kerr Kriisa goes down banged up. It forces you to change up what you do. If you're a member of Big Blue Nation, my message to you is this. You should crack open whatever bottle you have in your kitchen or whatever you've got in your refrigerator right now, and you should be celebrating like Goodman is with that hat, because the Kentucky Wildcats just showed that they are not just talk, that they are results under Mark Pope, because they've packaged together a couple of marquee wins here that nobody, if I told you November 4th, Kentucky would beat Gonzaga and Duke, you would have said, wow, this is a wow start to the Mark Pope era.
Yeah, and when I was there for that Duke win, it was almost a little bit surprising, right? How they won it, they come out of it, and I think even Big Blue Nation thought to themselves, all right, like, we're ecstatic. We love this guy, and now he beat Duke. But, like, is this going to be sustainable? We don't have the John Walls and the elite talent. Is this just going to be a one-off and we're going to be average or above average the rest of the year, but not beating those type of teams? And, again, I think this one kind of validates even further what Mark Pope is as a head coach, and that he is a guy that, and they're going to have the resources. Let's be honest. They had it this year. They had plenty of money to be able to spend for NIL. They put together a good team, but part of it is having the right staff to put together the right group of guys. Like, Mark Pope is not going to take a bunch of turds. That's not him. That's never going to be him. He's going to try to take high character guys that fit him. Even a kid like Kerr Kriisa, right? Like, a lot of people question Kerr. I've known Kerr for a long time, and I love him personally, but again, he's probably not the easiest guy to coach. Certainly wasn't at one point in his career, but Mark Pope, I think, has a great way about him of being able to connect with and individually be able to push the right buttons with these guys and spend time with them, to whereas they trust them and they'll play hard for them.
Isn't this way, Jeff? And then Coach will get your thought. Isn't this way of building the roster and going into the portal and getting a blend of winners and experience and depth more conducive to winning in 2024-25 college basketball than the way that this program was doing it the last 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, listen, right now you got to be older. We know that. Next year it might be a little bit different without the COVID, the COVID kids, the 5th year, 6th year, 7th year kids, the freshmen, let's be honest right now. This freshman class is far more impactful than last year's or the year prior's. It's a better class, and next year we'll probably have it be even further because, again, you won't have the age gap like it was. So I just feel like Pope, what he's going to do and he's already done is figure out a mix. He's not getting away from high school players completely. He's already gotten some pretty highly touted high school players, some that have committed for next season. But I think he'll have a good mixture of transfers, high school players, shooters, defenders. Like, again, it's just so much more aesthetically pleasing to the eye to watch this Kentucky team than the last couple of years when it was like painful to watch that offense. And really, if you go down to Fayetteville now, it's like honestly going to the dentist sometimes, watching that offense and the way John Calipari runs it. And then you look at Mark, and I've talked to Big Blue Nation fans, believe it or not, there are a couple that actually like me, and they say the same thing. Like, this is a fun team to watch because they move the ball and they can actually make shots from three.